Good morning. I'm Barbara Stubblefield, lead for public involvement and workforce development for CTA's Red Line Extension Project. On behalf of the CTA, we would like to welcome all of you to the Route to Procurement, a virtual webinar to inform you of upcoming contract opportunities on the CTA Red Line Extension Project. We appreciate you taking time to learn more about the CTA Red Line Extension, upcoming opportunities, and how to work with the CTA. If you are participating on Zoom, American Sign Language and Spanish interpretation, as well as closed captioning, are available. If you are watching via Facebook Live and need one of these services, please feel free to join us on Zoom. The project team has posted the link to join Zoom in the Facebook comments. No registration is required if you're using this option. If you would like to turn on captioning in English, click the closed caption icon in the Zoom toolbar. The CC closed caption icon is pictured on the slide to help you find it. We will now have a brief message in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking audience about Spanish interpretation before returning to English. Jean-Paul.
Audio de la presentación es disponible en español solamente con asistencia por Zoom. Busque el icónico de interpretación en la barra de webinar de Zoom. Le mostramos el icónico en esta diapositiva para ayudar a reconocerlo. Haga clic en el icónico y seleccione Spanish para escuchar al intérprete en la reunión. Para escuchar al intérprete en español, usted debe ingresar a la reunión a través del webinar de Zoom, no a través de Facebook o por teléfono. Si no puede ingresar por medio del webinar, puede contactar al servicio al cliente de CTA al 1-888-968-7282 para conocer más acerca del proyecto. Oprime 2 después de llamar para poder hablar con un representante en español.
Thank you, John Paul. Next, I will share ways to ask questions and use the chat function. While today's webinar will not have live Q&A session, anyone can ask a question or provide input at any time by entering it into the chat, or even after this meeting by emailing the project email address, which is redextension@transitchicago.com. If you have joined this webinar online via Zoom, you can ask questions and provide comments via Zoom Q&A feature. At the bottom of your meeting window, you can click on the button titled Chat, and a window will pop up where you can type in questions and comments. Questions will be developed into a Q&A document that will be made available following this webinar. If you are joining via Facebook Live, please note that the chat features are not available, and comments on the Red Line Extension Facebook page will not be monitored for questions. Please use the other methods of emailing or joining the webinar via Zoom. Please also note that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on CTA's website in case you need to leave before the meeting is over or you experience technical difficulties. It will also be available on the RLE Facebook page. All questions will be answered via a Q&A document that will be made available to all registrants following the webinar. Before we get started with our presentation today, here are some notes on today's format. In a short time, I will introduce the webinar speakers. Next, Red Line Extension Project Overview, Procurement Timeline, DBE Opportunities and Certification Needs, what you need to know to do business with CTA, frequently asked questions, and then a closing. Here is a brief introduction of today's speakers and their expertise. Now, you've already met me, Barbara Stubblefield. I am with the RLE Outreach Project Team. You will also hear from Leah Mooney, CTA's Director of Strategic Planning and Policy, Juan Pablo Prieto from CTA's Diversity Program, and Ellen McCormick, CTA's Procurement Department. But before we get into the presentation, please tune in to this short video about the Red Line Extension Project featuring CTA President Dorval R. Carter Jr., former board chairman Terry Peterson, and members of the Red Line Extension community.
This is our city, where we live, where we work. And transit is how we move. CTA's Red Line trains and buses connect us to our homes, jobs, schools, shopping, and contribute to Chicago's strength and economic vitality. Here on the far south side, the Red Line Extension Project, which extends the CTA Red Line from 95th to 130th Street with 4 new stations at 103rd, 111th, Michigan, and 130th will bring immense opportunities.
Now our public transportation system is going to be better than ever because it's going to be serving the far south side of the city. I think that making this investment and providing that access is not only going to revitalize the communities, it's going to be transformational in a way that allows these communities to grow and to thrive, not just now, but into the future. It is going to change their lives in ways that they can't even imagine, not in terms of their ability to go to other places, but also in terms of the investment that's going to occur in their communities because of the investment we're making here.
You go back 6 years ago, almost 2013, when we first started the $425 million reconstruction of the Red Line from the Sir Mike Chinatown station all the way to 95th Street. We were able to reduce both the commute going and coming 10 minutes each way. And we were able to make all of the stations accessible. And then you talk about $270 million terminal at 95th Street, which now creates a destination, whether it's Greyhound buses, Pace buses, CTA buses. It provides a gateway for residents on the south side. Now you're going to have a train that runs all the way to 130th and making 4 stops along the way. It's going to be a game changer for those communities and in terms of their quality of life.
But I believe a city like Chicago certainly should have transportation all over. Many of my members, especially in the wintertime, they have to leave before church is over because transportation is hindering. I feel sorry for people that have to leave. You got to leave before dark, especially in the wintertime. So that red line would help.
A major capital project like this takes many years to move from an idea to reality, but plans are progressing and progress is happening. This momentum positions the project for critical funding to move it forward.
The total cost of the project is $2.3 billion. Half of which is coming from the federal government, a little bit over $1 billion, and the remainder of which will come from other non-federal sources, be the city, the state, or CTA. CTA has already committed $75 million to this project, which has been used for the project development phase of the project itself. In addition to that, CTA has committed another $310 million that will allow this project to move forward into the construction phase of this project and ultimately secure the federal funding to make the project happen. It is fair to say the planning time is over and action time is here. And I hope the community understands and experiences that over the next few years.
This animation shows what the Red Line extension could look like, with potential for future residential and commercial development added. Riders will experience modern rail stations that are fully accessible to people with disabilities. The 103rd Street Station is one of the 4 new stations. A new station is certain to boost the walkability and economic vitality of our neighborhoods, with the goal of preserving our community's unique cultural characteristics. The 130th Street Station at Altgale Gardens is the Red Line Extension's terminal station. This ground-level station will provide convenient access to schools, restaurants, shops, recreation, and other attractions across the city.
Out here in my community, we said we're going into Chicago, but we actually in Chicago. It would be fabulous to be able to go from Altgale Gardens to downtown. If we had the opportunity to have the Red Line extension to 130th Street, then that will open up a whole lot of opportunity where people can go anywhere in the city of Chicago, whether it's north side, west side, east side, and make those connections to the other red lines that is around.
The 111th Street Station will be elevated. This station will connect people to Roseland's businesses and medical district, and to the Pullman neighborhood and Pullman National Monument.
The kids who are traveling from 130th and Altgale Gardens, they don't have the same experiences or opportunities as the kids that live on 55th, as far as having fun with their friends, as far as going to museums that are, across Lakeshore Drive, or going to the beaches, or going downtown, or going to any of those locations or those places. So I believe that it will open those doors for those students. Hey, we can go hang out downtown after school. Let's go. We can just hop on this train. That a lot of students would travel from 111th and get on that train and maybe go to a Columbia College or a DePaul, or maybe even Loyola because it travels that far, or maybe Northwestern University because it goes that far. They could do that.
Located on a key bus corridor, the Michigan Avenue station will serve as an access point to reach jobs and other opportunities across the city. This station is likely to attract businesses, jobs, and housing.
I work with low-income individuals and families, so many of them do not have cars. The Red Line extension is going to be a major plus for our far south side community. It's something that we've needed for a very long time.
Better access and connectivity, frequent rail service, economic opportunities, transportation equity for far south siders. The benefits are clear.
The extension of the Red Line from 95th Street to 130th will create businesses, employment opportunities for those residents. I see this Red Line extension as removing barriers, as bringing equity to those communities that have experienced years of disinvestment. It's aspirational. It brings hopefulness for the community. It will bring resources and access to those communities that they haven't had. Those are just some of the benefits that I see the Red Line extension bringing.
Benefits that the far Southsiders will experience because the Red Line extension is moving ahead.
Thank you for your patience. I know it's been a long time coming. I know you have heard about this project and promises of this project in the past, but I'm here to tell you, as a Southsider myself, I am committed to bringing this project home and to show you that your wait is now finally over.
The far south side is here. We are here. We need resources. We need transportation.
The Red Line extension would bring new opportunities to the people in the area.
So I see nothing but goodness coming out of this whole development. So we have to stay vocal and we have to be engaged.
The Red Line extension is not only moving ahead, it's becoming a reality. And that light you see at the end of the tunnel is a train that's coming to your community.
Stay connected and informed about the Red Line extension. Visit transitchicago.com/RedEXT.
Good morning, everyone. I am Leah Mooney. As Barbara said, I'm the Director of Strategic Planning and Policy at CTA. And I am really happy to see so many of you joining us today, interested in being part of this historic investment. For those of you who are not already familiar with the project, I hope you found the video informative and now have a better understanding of what this project means to Chicago and especially to the far south side. President Carter is this project's biggest supporter, and this project's pace has accelerated under his leadership. He and our entire board, including current chairman Lester Barclay, are committed to seeing this transformative investment happen and to ensuring also that it reflects the priority of CTA's diversity programs, which you'll hear about later. To recap, as you heard, the RLE project is a 5.6-mile heavy rail extension, and there'll be 4 new stations at 103rd, 111th, Michigan Avenue near 116th Street, and 130th Street at Oakdale Gardens. There will be multimodal connections at each station, including bus, bike, pedestrian, and park and ride facilities. And it will also include a new rail yard and maintenance facility at approximately 120th Street. Shown here is the anticipated project schedule through 2029. And I should note that these milestones will depend upon obtaining the required funding and approvals. The RLE project as a whole is currently in the project development phase of the federal New Start funding program, and it will have completed that phase by the end of this year. A number of milestones must be met in order to successfully exit project development, including the completion of environmental review, and that will conclude this year with the final environmental impact statement and record of decision. Once that review is complete, at that point, we will be able to acquire property for the project. And some of the procurement items today relate to that. The project development phase also requires completion of the 30% design for the project. And after that is complete, we will begin development of the procurement for the design build portion of the contracts. We will talk more about that and that effort in a moment as well, but we anticipate issuing a request for qualifications, which you see here happening towards the end of this year. Also shown on this timeline are separate milestones for the RFP and the notice to proceed for the yard and shop construction, and that NTP is anticipated to happen in the first half of 2025. That's a separate design bid build contract, and we will talk more about that as well. Finally, we anticipate that these milestones will allow construction to start in 2025, with the RLE opening for service in 2029. As you saw in the schedule just now, we will begin acquiring properties for the project later this year, once we've completed our environmental analysis process. Property management contract will support CTA to manage these properties and to make sure that CTA is and remains a good neighbor in the community. We anticipate releasing this RFP in the second quarter of this year. So within the next month or two, the scope of work for the contract will include multiple property management tasks, including securing the site, inspections, and general maintenance activities. The properties may have structures on them, and when they are acquired, the property manager will need to manage any structures until they are demolished, which would be under a separate contract. Following demolition, the property manager would then resume management of that vacant property. The next 2 contracts listed here are for building demolitions. That will be required for any acquired property. CTA will be letting these 2 separate work order contracts for this effort. One of these contracts will be for the more straightforward and simple demolitions and smaller buildings. That contract will be focused on having small business enterprises as prime contractors, and it will be a pre-qualification work order-based contract. The second contract, also a pre-qualification work order-based contract, will be for more complex demolition packages, and we anticipate releasing both of these RFPs in Q3 of 2022. Finally, the work orders, the demolition designs will be done under separate task orders, which I will discuss in a moment, and the work orders for the actual demolition work will be released to the pre-qualified firms for bidding under the 2 blanket contracts after that. So additionally, there will be 1 construction manager for the oversight of all the demolition contractors. CTA intends to issue a task order under our existing construction manager blanket contract to the existing pre-qualified firms. The task order proposal request is anticipated to be released in the 4th quarter of this year. There will also be opportunities under CTA's existing General Engineering Consulting Services blanket contract. This contract pre-qualified architectural and engineering firms for design work, and the firms are separated into 2 tiers based on the size of the project. There's a separate small business enterprise architectural and engineering blanket contract, which we also anticipate using for this effort. First, under Tier 1 of the GEC, or General Engineering Consultant Blanket Contract, we anticipate issuing a request for task order proposals for the final design of the 120th yard and shop. Proposals are anticipated to be requested in Q3 of this year. Under Tier 2 of the General Engineering Consultant Blanket Contract, we anticipate issuing multiple task orders for the design of complex demolition packages. That would include things like multifamily and industrial properties. More than one demolition design may be packaged into a single task order, and it will really depend on timing and the specific circumstances. Finally, we intend to request proposals for the simple demolition designs, such as single-family homes, under the Small Business Enterprise Architectural and Engineering Services Blanket Contract. Again, these may be packaged together based upon timing. Now for the big construction jobs. There will be 2 main construction contracts for work on the Red Line extension scope. What we are calling the mainline work will be procured as a design build contract with a 2-step procurement. The scope for the design build contract, or the mainline work, will include the final design and construction of the mainline right-of-way, structures, tracks, signal system, and traction power system, as well as the 4 stations and parking facilities. We anticipate beginning this with a request for qualifications at the end of this year, shortlisting around the middle of next year, and then the request for proposals, which would be provided to the shortlist following that. The yard and shop would actually be a design bid build construction contract, and we would be completing final design as I described with the GEC consultant. The anticipated request for proposals will be in the Q3 of 2024. And this one would be, as I said, would have achieved final design before that is let. And we anticipate awarding that sometime in middle of 2025. And finally, we anticipate also having a single owner's representative contract that will act on CTA's behalf to ensure the successful completion of the project and to make sure that CTA's interests are represented in every decision at every phase of this development. The owner's rep will oversee the following contracts: the design build mainline contract, the design bid build yard and shop contract, as well as multiple advanced utility packages and any environmental remediation work that's required. We anticipate bringing on the owner's rep in order to help us oversee bidding phase, design phase, construction, post-construction, and through closeout. This would be issued as a letter of interest and qualifications, and we anticipate releasing that in the Q3 of this year. So next, I'd like to pass it on to Juan Pablo Prieto of CTA's diversity program, and he'll talk about CTA's diversity initiatives for this project. Please also stay to hear what Ellen McCormick will be providing about how to do business and the important work on making sure that you have managed any potential conflicts of interest on this complex and incredibly important job. Thank you again for being here today and wanting to work as we make this transformative and meaningful investment in the city's landscape.
Diversity Programs is your #1 advocate within CTA and has 4 distinct units that assist in creating opportunities for disadvantaged business enterprises, or DBEs, small business enterprises, or SBEs, and individuals seeking employment on our projects through our contractors. Our president, Dorval Carter, and all of our board are fully supportive of creating opportunities for DBEs, SBEs, and individuals from economically disadvantaged areas. I'll review some programs and services that we provide that will help you prepare to compete for work on the Red Line extension. I would first like to start off by talking about our achievements to date on RLE. There have been several contracts awarded as CTA prepared to pursue the RLE project, and we have made sure that there has been DBE participation on all of it. The first contract awarded was an engineering task order for surveying and had a DBE commitment of 84.18%. Next, a contract for program management services with a 30% DBE commitment. Then we have a contract for professional consulting video services with a DBE commitment of 30%. There is a contract for an RLE final environmental impact and preliminary engineering services with a 26% DBE commitment. Next, a consultant to analyze, develop, and enact a transit TIF for RLE with a DBE commitment of 25.79%. Finally, a contract for RLE Transit Supportive Development Comprehensive Plan with a 40.11 DBE commitment. In total, CTA has already committed over $28 million to DBEs, and we look forward to creating more opportunities with the contracts Leah described earlier. Next, I would like to take you through the DBE certification process. The CTA only operates a disadvantaged business enterprise or DBE program. We do not accept MBE or WBE certification. There are 5 certifying agencies in Illinois: the Illinois Department of Transportation, or IDOT, the City of Chicago, CTA, Metro, and PACE. You must be certified by one of these agencies as a DBE to count for credit on our DBE goals. To be eligible for DBE certification, the firm's gross receipts must not exceed the Small Business Administration limit for the work categories requested over a 5-year average and must not exceed $28.48 million over a 3-year average. The firms must be an independent, for-profit business owned and controlled by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. The SED individuals must own at least 51% of the firm and maintain long-term and day-to-day control of the firm. Social disadvantage includes U.S. citizens or permanent residents that are African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American, and women. Economic disadvantage means each SED owner cannot have a personal net worth over $1.32 million. As part of our DBE program, we also have our race and gender neutral program called the Small Business Enterprise, or SBE program. We use the same DBE certification standards except for the social disadvantage for our SBE program. This means that all DBEs are automatically included in our SBE program and do not need any additional certifications. Applying for certification with CTA is all online and using our diversity management system called B2G Now. You can go to cta.dbesystem.com to begin. You'll first need to register as a vendor. If you haven't done that before, you'll need to go through that process. Once your registration is approved, you'll receive an email with your iSupplier credentials. Use that to log back into B2G Now and click on Apply for Certification. From there, you'll answer all the relevant questions and upload the required documents to submit your application. Please be sure to upload all the documents or the system will not let you continue. If there is something that is not applicable to your firm, check to see if there is a not applicable checkbox for that document. If not, upload a Word document that explains why this is not applicable to your firm. Once we receive a complete application, we will begin our review. We may ask for more supporting documents or additional questions. We will also conduct a site visit and interview the owner or owners of the firm. All approved DBE firms are listed in the Illinois UCP DBE directory. This is where agencies and primes search for DBE firms in Illinois. This process is the same for DBE and SBE certification, and all CTA certified SBE firms will be listed on our SBE directory through B2G Now. The time to apply for certification is now. If you are already DBE certified and your business has grown into new areas, put in your expansion request with your host agency. If you wait until a contract you are interested in is advertised, it will be too late. Our small business development and outreach team regularly hosts meet and greet and meet the contractor events for DBE firms to meet and network with potential and selected primes, as well as CTA staff. We also offer trainings and workshops throughout the year. So make sure to follow CTA on Facebook and LinkedIn to learn more about future events. There are 2 programs that I would like to call out that will help firms as they pursue work for the RLE project. The first is our Mentor Protege program. CTA is committed to helping DBE firms grow in capacity and capability, and our Mentor Protege program is a great tool to do just that. To participate in the program, a large firm, or the mentor, and a DBE firm, the protege, must develop a plan to help the DBE grow in at least 3 areas. These plans can be submitted as part of a contract or can be ongoing. As an example that I like to use is a DBE firm that is certified to install drywall wants to expand to masonry. They would develop a plan with a larger firm to mentor them in installing brick walls and structures, how to bid those specific scopes of work, and how to ensure safety and quality standards are met. Once the protege firm has completed the program, they should be able to pursue new scopes of work and apply to expand their work categories for their DBE certification. You can find our Mentor Protege program at the link below, or go to transitchicago.com/DBE. Make sure to review this document and start using it as an agenda item when you meet with larger firms to discuss participating on CTA contracts. The second program I would like to mention is our Building Small Businesses, or BSB, a financial capacity building program. CTA started this program on phase 1 of the Red and Purple Modernization, or RPM project, in conjunction with the prime contractor. Recently, the CTA board approved a contract for a team to administer this contract on all CTA contracts, and we will be announcing our first orientation session soon. BSB helped over 20 DBEs secure over $5.6 million in capital, and 4 firms have already secured contracts on RPM, with more still competing for more scopes. Again, follow us on social media so you can participate in this program and get connected to access to capital, technical support, and back office support. Just as CTA is committed to the contractors on our projects reflecting the community we serve, we are also committed to creating opportunities for the workforce on our projects to reflect the community that we serve. In order to create those opportunities, we place workforce goals on most of our construction projects and ask that all contractors and subcontractors, including DBEs, participate in achieving the workforce goals. The first goal is a careers opportunity goal that focuses on hiring Section 3 workers and Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, enrolled individuals. The second goal is our union apprentice goal, which creates opportunities for current apprentices to work hours to earn their journey worker status and make room for more apprentices. Our third and final goal is our economically disadvantaged area goal, which targets zip codes within CTA's service area with a median household income of $45,000 or less. Again, diversity program staff is your #1 advocate within CTA, and we are here to help. Please join us at our networking events. Make sure to join purchasing's pre-bid and pre-proposal meetings, and follow us on social media. If you scan the QR code at the bottom of the page, it will take you to the Diversity Programs Department directory with all of our contact information. We want to hear from you. Thank you again for your time today, and I will now turn it over to Ellen McCormick.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. Thank you, Juan Pablo. Good morning. My name is Ellen McCormick. I'm the Vice President of Purchasing and Supply Chain for the Chicago Transit Authority. I'm here to speak to you about bidding or proposing on CTA procurements and about possible conflicts of interest and how to avoid them. CTA has moved to electronic submission for bids and proposals. Paper bids and proposals are no longer accepted. If you are interested in finding out more about CTA's procurement opportunities, you can go to our e-procurement portal Bonfire to view and download solicitation documents and submit your proposals. There's no cost associated with downloading solicitations or submitting proposals. After registering on Bonfire, you will be able to view and download solicitation documents, as well as view information about key dates for the procurement, such as pre-proposal meetings or site visits. You will also be required to submit your response electronically. At the bottom of the slide are screenshots of a project in Bonfire. We've also included some answers to frequently asked questions that are important to remember. For example, while vendors may submit a table of exceptions for RFPs or LIQs, doing so on an IFB will render the bid non-responsive. Further, we anticipate significant federal funding for the RLE program, which will trigger Buy America requirements. Finally, our buying plan and Bonfire portal will have information about our current and future procurement opportunities. Now on to conflicts. Because the RLE project has a number of contracts associated with it, conflicts of interest are likely to arise. While I cannot go through every possible scenario with you, because many of the determinations will be fact specific, I would like to provide you with a few things to consider as you determine which of these contracts you would like to pursue. The three situations the CTA will examine to determine if a conflict exists are these. First, have you obtained or had access to information that is not available to the general public due to work you or your employees have performed on behalf of the CTA, which would give you the appearance of having a competitive advantage? Second, would prior work done on behalf of the CTA lead a vendor to have or potentially have a vested interest that is different than that of the CTA? Third, would the award of another contract put the vendor in a position where it is supervising itself? I will now provide you with examples of these three scenarios. The first example would exist when work previously performed by the vendor could cause them to have a vested interest that is different than that from the CTA. An example of this is when a vendor has prepared design documents and then is in a position to oversee the contractor executing that design. The vendor would or could have a vested interest in defending the adequacy of the design to avoid liability for errors. However, in a case where a vendor only worked on design documents up to 30%, the assumption is that the vendor who brings the design up to 100% now owns the design, and therefore it is possible that a vendor who only worked on the design up to 30% would not have a vested interest in defending the design documents at 100%, and therefore may not be conflicted out. Please note that there's no way to mitigate this type of conflict. The second example is if a vendor were awarded two contracts on the same project. Would this put the vendor in a position where they would be monitoring themselves? If a vendor were to be awarded the contract as a program manager, and part of the scope of this contract was to monitor the construction manager, in that case, the vendor could not be awarded the contract for construction management work. Under these circumstances, where the PM and the CM are the same company, the vendor could have a vested interest in ignoring any substandard work by the CM and may be willing to sign off on invoices that it otherwise wouldn't. Please note that there is no way to mitigate this type of conflict either. The third scenario regarding a competitive advantage would be where in a situation where a vendor performed or is performing work on a contract on behalf of the CTA, where they were involved in the development of or had access to independent cost estimates, scheduling, or any other non-public information concerning work that is in the scope of the second contract that would or could provide them with a competitive advantage while competing for the second procurement. If they were involved in creating or had access to that information, then the vendor would be deemed to have a competitive advantage and therefore would be precluded from participating in the second procurement. Further, even when the vendor hadn't worked on the ice or scheduling, for example, we would ask if they had attended meetings or where cost estimates were discussed, or if they were able to access the shared drive where that type of information was stored. If the answer to either of these questions is yes, then the vendor would be precluded from participating in the second procurement. Even having access to sensitive information is enough to provide the vendor with a competitive advantage or the appearance of a competitive advantage. Please note, however, that it is possible to mitigate this type of conflict. Understand that CTA is interested in doing business with as many of you as possible, and therefore we'll be looking at the answers to these questions with the intention of excluding as few of you as possible. However, the CTA must protect the integrity of the procurements, which in turn protects the CTA. With this in mind, I would like to provide you with some examples of possible ways that you can mitigate your conflict in the case where information was acquired that could provide a competitive advantage. For larger firms, the employees that have to obtain the information which would provide the advantage could be kept physically apart from the employees proposed on the new contract. A training program informing the employees of the importance of keeping the information contained can be implemented, and an affidavit that the employees have not shared the information can be signed by all employees that have worked on the previous contract or are proposed to work on an upcoming contract. This is commonly known of as a firewall. Obviously, the earlier the steps are taken, the better. They will be of no use if the information has already been shared. For smaller subcontracting firms that don't have the manpower to offer different staffing, they can help their cause by immediately requesting that their prime contractor limit their access to only the information that is necessary for them to perform their work. This can be done by restricting their access to meetings and their access to shared drives, which could contain this type of information. Ask the prime contractor to provide you with proof that you have not had access to confidential information. Such proof could consist of having sign-in sheets at meetings. These sign-in sheets, along with an affidavit signed by the prime contractor that these sheets are correct, are accurate and true, may be used as evidence that the sub did not obtain confidential information through their attendance at meetings. The examples I provided are not exhaustive. Additional information may be required and further action may be necessary to avoid a finding of conflict of interest. If you believe that you may have a conflict due to a competitive advantage, the only type of conflict that can be mitigated, then ask yourself if you are able to mitigate that advantage. If you believe you are able to mitigate your advantage, then you should send a letter to the purchasing department, which contains the following information: the contract you previously worked on or are currently working on. If you were a sub, the prime contractor you worked for, the work you performed, and the proof that you did not have access to confidential information or that you have established a firewall. Additionally, you should let us know which contracts you would like to pursue so that we can perform an analysis to determine whether or not a conflict exists in relation to those contracts. In an effort to assist you in determining which procurements to propose on, potential conflict of interest guidance will be provided in each solicitation document when advertised, so that you may assess future contracting opportunities. I hope that I was able to provide you with pertinent information to assist you with your business plan in deciding which CTA procurements you want to pursue. Due to the complicated nature of this subject matter, I will not be taking questions at this time. However, the presentation will be posted on the CTA website for future reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And thanks all of you for attending this webinar. Remember, if you have any questions that you did not send through the chat, or you would like to be added to the project contact list for future updates, please email us at redextension@transitchicago.com. You may also visit our engagement website to keep abreast of project updates at engagerle.transitchicago.com. Again, that's engagerle.transitchicago.com. Thank you again for joining us and have a great day.